I could have had a little bit of an excuse. There was no excuses. We have our lives, we have our schedules, and nobody's going to change it, okay? So and if you don't mind, I'm going to tone it down just a little bit. Is that okay? You're from Illinois. I had a feeling you might say that.
Welcome back to Justice. That was President Trump addressing why he decided not to cancel a rally in Illinois tonight in the wake of that deadly synagogue shooting. As we've been reporting, 11 people are dead and at least 6 injured in Pittsburgh today. Here to talk about that, as well as more on the elections just over a week away, is former Trump campaign manager Corey Lewandowski. Corey, thanks for being here. Your take on what happened today in the synagogue?
Well, a disgusting, terrible tragedy that the nation is going to mourn the loss of these individuals for a long time. But what we have to understand was what was the motive behind this. This is an individual who clearly was anti-Semitic, hated Donald Trump, hated Jewish people for all the wrong reasons, and decided to take it upon himself to go and commit this heinous crime. We need to do better, and we have to find individuals like this, and we need the community to help us find those people.
What did he do that you know? Corey, let me ask a question. What did he do that we know of that could have stopped this?
Well, we don't know, but what we need to know is who he interacted with on a daily basis. What was his rhetoric before? Were there any indications or signs that would have given us the opportunity to go and have a question and answer period with him about a potential tendency to go and commit a crime like this? We have to rely on the people who know him the best.
Okay, yes. He put on a blog that he apparently had been taken off of because of his language, that he was tired of the HIAS, which is the, I think it's the Hebrew Immigration Aid Society, bringing in these immigrant caravans that come in to slaughter us. And so he was sick of it, and he was going to take care of it himself, and he said, I'm going in. So let's talk about monitoring that kind of stuff, Corey. I mean, what do you do there? Do you cross-check whether the guy has a license? And apparently he was a licensed gun owner. But how do we do that?
Well, you know, Judge, the best scenario that I can remember is the San Bernardino killing. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Where the woman went, and what happened, if you remember, was the neighbors actually called the police and said, we think there's a problem next door. You need to go and investigate it. And the police dropped the ball on that one. And look, as a former law enforcement officer, Judge, I know how stretched the police are. But we need community people. When they see something that could be wrong, they need to let other people know about it. And we need to find out if his neighbors, his friends, if he had any, his colleagues, his family, ever were aware of him saying something that could have prevented this terrible tragedy from happening. But his
neighbors say, Corey, that he was a nice guy, he was a quiet guy, he would say hello, the same nonsense you hear about every serial murderer, you know, in your career and in mine. You know, I think the scary thing right now is that if this guy is alone and acted alone, and we don't know any of this for sure, that any of us can be a victim. And so what does this mean in terms of how we behave? We got to hope that people say something. And you know what, Corey? I really believe that people now are nosy enough, based on the politics of the world today, that they are going to say something. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong at all. And look, we need to be vigilant. We need to be vigilant in our communities, in our place of worship, and in our daily lives. Look, the world is a dangerous place, and this past week should remind everybody that anybody could be a victim. What took place today was a horrific tragedy that could have taken place not only in Pittsburgh, it could have taken place anywhere. In small towns and big towns, it could take place anywhere. So we need to be vigilant, and we need to do a better job as a community of looking for problems and reporting those problems.
Okay, so let's say that this guy is a guy who is just a hateful guy, and he, you know, he hasn't been involved with anyone. The question that I think is inevitable to everyone is, do you think he was ginned up by the rhetoric of what's going on in the world today? Whatever side you're on, I don't really care anymore. That he felt by the way, you said it right, he hated Trump, all right? But that this is a guy who, you know, just got fed up with it all and was going to take it out on innocent Jewish people in a house of worship.
You know, I do think I said this recently, I think the rhetoric is very high when you have the former highest law enforcement officer in our land saying when they're down, we kick them. when you have Maxine Waters and others saying if you see them in a restaurant, get in their face, go after them, right? That is intolerable anymore, Judge. We've now seen exactly what has taken place by this visceral rhetoric on both sides, candidly. One individual is sending, bombs to individuals, and that's a tragedy. And now we see this disgusting display today. Look, we've got 10 days before an election,
right,
and I fight every day as hard as I can for my team to win. But I want to do it fairly, and I want to do it in a manner that allows us to have conversations when it's over. And believe me, Judge, I want to win the election. I fight to win elections, but I'm not going to fight to the point where we're seeing people being killed over it. We need to do a better job as society, and we need to come together and have a conversation when this election is done or before to allow us to all remember one thing. We're the greatest country in the world. We need to work together to keep it that way.
All right. You remember when Steve Scalise was shot on the baseball field. The shooter goes over and says, are they Republicans or Democrats? He gets the answer, the Republicans. He shoots them. Oh, we're all going to come together. Everything's going to get better. Didn't get better at all. Now what?
No, you're exactly right. And I saw Steve Scalise just last week, and he's still walking with a cane. He's made a remarkable recovery. But you have to remember, Judge, not only was he shot and other staff there and other Capitol Police officers were shot.
You're right.
But we also saw, look at what happened to Vanessa Trump. She talked about it. The letter that she opened that had a white powder on it in front of her family, where she had on her face, on her body, she wrote an open letter this week about the horror and the scare that she had to endure for 2 weeks because some lunatic mailed her a package. And we've seen this now on both sides. And what we need to do is we need to remember what's important, what our priorities are as a country. And that should be homeland security, national security, economic security, and our families. That's what should be our priorities as a nation, and not taking out our visceral hatred on one another.
And it was kind of sad, Corey, I have to say, for me in particular, and I fought for a hate crime. I mean, I saw a lot of anti-Semitic behavior, and you kind of wish that was behind us in our history. But it's almost like a legacy that you continue to go after the Jewish people. I mean, why they're targeted so much, sometimes by the right and the left. I mean, it is mind-boggling. Anyway, Corey Lewandowski, thanks so much for being with us tonight. Good to see you.
Thank you, Judge.
All right.